Solutions Review presents Inside Jam, the home for the human conversation.
Hi, my name is Jonathan Paula. I'm the Director of Multimedia and Events here at Solutions Review, and I'm excited to bring you to our fourth and final panel of Day 1 of Inside Jam Live, our week-long discussion about enterprise tech and artificial intelligence. Our final panel today involves these 5 experts as they discuss learning through insight, how data analytics redefines human learning and skill development. Willie, Juan, Paul, Samir, and Vin, thank you very much for joining me. I am looking forward to listening in on this discussion over the next hour. But before we begin with the discussion in earnest, let's do some introductions. William, you've agreed to moderate, so let's have you go first. 30 seconds or so. Why don't you tell the audience a bit about yourself?
So, hello, I'm William McKnight. I'm president of McKnight Consulting Group. Really pleased to be here today and moderate this panel of experts on a very important topic that I can't wait to dig into with you. My day job is running McKnight Consulting Group, and we are a consultancy and industry analyst firm in the area of data and information in the enterprise. And we work with a lot of the major vendors as well on their products and help companies level up in terms of the use of data, getting it ready for AI. That means we build data lakes, master data management environments, and data meshes, and so on and so forth, all for business benefit of the enterprise. That's what we do.
Excellent. Well, thank you, William, and appreciate you being back on the show. Let's go over to Juan next. Welcome.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Juan Cicada. I'm the principal researcher at ServiceNow. I joined ServiceNow recently through the acquisition of our company, Data.World, which is in the data catalog and governance space. And I have been researching and working in the areas of data analytics and AI for close to 20 years now. So very focused on what is now very popular as knowledge graphs, which has been kind of very dear to my heart and soul of what I've been working on for over 20 years. So I'm really excited about this conversation. Thank you very much for the invitation.
You're very welcome. Thank you for being here. Paul, welcome to the show.
Hi, I'm Paul Siegel, founder of Starweaver. We're a 100-person edtech platform that creates a lot of AI courses. 1/3 of all AI on Coursera were created by us as of now. We also have a series of platforms, been in the edtech business a long time, and exploring a lot of tools that we use to deliver hyper-personalized experiences and data analytics for learners and for platforms. Very excited to have this conversation as well.
Excellent. Thank you for being here. Samir, welcome to the show.
Hey, I'm Samir. I'm the founder of AugmentMe. Our company has built a Neuro AI agent that helps classrooms and helps students and by understanding their engagement and changing the course content or providing recommendations to either teachers or students themselves as to whether they're learning or not and helping make them better learners.
Welcome. And let's get to Vin next. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. My name is Vin. I'm the Senior Director of Data Science and AI at Legal Shield. Legal Shield is a subscription-based legal services company. You pay $30 a month and talk to a lawyer at any time. I run the analytics data science pieces at the company.
Excellent. Welcome. And we have a last-minute addition to the show. Andrew Madsen calling in just hot off the deep planning process. Welcome. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you for having me.
Tell us a bit about yourself. We're in the middle of the introductions right now.
Oh, fantastic. I am Andrew Madsen, head of developer relations at Fivetran, merging soon with DBT. So we'll see what that new corporation name is. Before leading developer relations, I ran machine learning and analytics at a bunch of places, JP Morgan, LPL Financial, Arizona State. Thanks for inviting me. I'm happy to join.
Yeah, appreciate you being able to join at the last minute here. Quick point, logistically, Andrew, can you tilt your camera down just a smidge for us so your face is up near the top? Yeah, perfect. Thank you very much. With that, my job is set, so I'll hand things over to William to moderate the rest of the discussion. Good luck, gentlemen.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. We're here to talk about something that's quietly transforming learning and human performance, the way data and AI are reshaping how we build skills. For decades, learning has relied on averages, but averages hide the most important thing we have in common, that none of us learn the same way or have the same interests. Data and AI give us a different lens. It allows us to see patterns in how people learn, where they struggle, and what they actually need to learn now. that we have AI and what actually accelerates mastery of a domain that meets goals. Instead of guessing, we can now measure. Instead of designing for the typical learner, we can design for the individual. People can progress faster with more confidence and with training that adapts to them rather than the other way around. The panel you're about to hear from works on the front lines of this shift. They're building systems that predict skills gaps before they appear, training programs that adjust in real time, and learning environments powered by insights that were invisible just a few years ago. The direction we'll take today is not just what's possible, but what's practical. How do we use data in learning without losing the human element? How do we empower people instead of overwhelming them? And how do we make sure this new era of data-driven learning leads to opportunity and not inequality? So with that, I will start with my first question for the panel, and I'll start with Samir. Samir, how can analytics and AI uncover hidden learning potential that's aligned with the individual?
So there are multiple ways of doing it, and the way we are, at AugmentMe, the way we are trying to do that is we try to understand what is your engagement. Let's say you are given a very difficult problem all of a sudden, and you have never seen that kind of problem. And if I can understand from an AI point of view, if the AI can understand that I'm really perplexed and I am really stressed out that I cannot really understand this problem, then I know that I have hit a wall with you. And at that time, I can probably go down. I can probably say that I can simplify this question for you. I think, isn't this like something a good tutor would do, right? I mean, if I have a very complex question, and then the tutor would come and tell me, okay, let me re-explain this question to you. And it would go around and tell me in a way that probably I can understand at my level. So I think data analytics can do that for an individual, not, again, as you mentioned, not in terms of averages, but at that moment, it can change the question. It can pose a totally different thing, or maybe ask you to do something else.
Sure. Hey, Paul, do you have anything to add to that?
Oh, sure. I mean, I think that's interesting. It's an interesting problem because you can think of it in the macro and micro level. In the macro level, for example, and there's many other ways of looking at this, there are platforms or ways in which people consume education, which comes in pre-recorded format. So the question in the macro level, from my perspective, is how the purveyors, the LinkedIn Learnings, the Coursera's, the Udemy's, the organization, the enterprise that have pre-recorded content, how do they align that to the demand, right? So that's a data analytics problem, because if you look at what's in demand, then you would know what to supply. So that's at a macro level. And that may sound very telescoped out, but the reality is that's how people are consuming a massive amount of content today in pre-recorded format. Secondly, more at a micro level, which was just interestingly what was being articulated, I think, is how do you then slice and dice what someone gets to the moment, not just to their aggregate need that maybe a course that you see, but how do you either take them through it differently? How do you slice the material so they just get what they need? And how do you challenge them to keep upping the game? There were, back in the day, I'll be very brief, there was a company called Newton that had adaptive learning, which was innovative in its day 15 or 20 years ago. But now we obviously know AI can do the same. And how does AI retain the intelligence, the memory, the tokens in memory to keep that person engaged, that person excited? So I think it's a interesting problem that obviously many organizations, like all of us here, are solving, but it depends on what level you want to solve it at. Do you want to solve it at the publisher level that's publishing big content in all sorts of formats? Do you want to solve it at the individual level? And how does that get delivered? Through what vehicles?
So Juan, they talked about how to help people assist people in their learning, but how do we make sure they're learning the right things? Not what they decide that they want to learn, but things that are aligned with our goals over time.
Well, so I want to bring kind of my perspective, like looking at from an enterprise perspective, looking what happens within organizations and companies. Because, I mean, you have employees in your companies, right? So you want to be able to ensure that they learn and understand the things that they need so they can be prepared to be the best and most effective at their jobs, right? So there are things that there's a lot of assumptions that are usually made all over the place. And I think first of all, those assumptions are kind of are implicit, and we don't even know what people are thinking about. I mean, the typical type of questions that people are like, what is a customer, right? People talk about like, or what does this particular metric mean? Like we all have assumptions about that, and then we make decisions around that, but we're really not really understanding what this actually, what it means and how it affects our work. One of the things I'm really excited now with AI, with these large language models, is that we really have the ability to try to extract kind of all the different interpretations that people may have about particular contexts within our business. So let's take a simple example. Like when we say, what does a customer mean, or what is an order, or what is a particular metric? We are going to be able to very at scale extract all these different interpretations, definitions of what these concepts mean, and help us understand within an organization where we are aligned, where we're not aligned, where we actually need to start kind of getting that alignment, because that's where we're later on confusing our employees, where we're wasting so much time around that. So I call this like a whole knowledge engineering process, that we're able to be able to extract a lot of that knowledge that exists in people's heads, that's in documentation, that's in code, and that's going to help us organize so we can then later on help people build better applications, but also get our employees to understand more what that they're going to be effective in their work. I think that is what I'm really excited about, of how we're able to capture all that knowledge. It's going to lead to a new challenge, which is like, how do we govern all of that? How do we make sure that this is the right thing, or under this context is the right thing? So really excited, and open challenges, which makes this field so fascinating, which I'm really lucky to be in.
Right. Knowledge only goes so far. You have to know when to apply it, which I suppose is another form of knowledge. But then I'll give you the last word here on this topic of using analytics and AI to uncover hidden learning potential.
Yeah, no, thank you. We've been personalizing different things for decades, right? Learning, Amazon did this with books since the 90s. Spotify for your music taste and whatnot, right? So I think, but in consumer life, a wrong prediction, if the analytics or the AI, if it goes wrong, then it's just a bad book recommendation. But in learning, it could kind of take the learner on actually reroute their future. So we have to be a little more careful, a lot more careful when building systems. And I think as builders of AI technology in learning space, we have these bigger things at stake here, and we have more responsibility. Analytics also captures the behavioral truth, not just feelings, especially in learning. We see this in surveys all the time. People say a lot of things in surveys, but they do things differently. A person might feel that they're a visual learner, for example, but because that's what they've always, everybody around them say so. But the data might, or the analytics or AI might uncover that they're actually auditory or kinesthetic. They use all senses to learn, right? So those personalization, there are some nuggets of information that we can uncover for themselves. So,
well, we're going to start to get to how this type of learning may contradict what people actually believe about themselves, and then what to do about it. As a matter of fact, this next question, and I'll start with you, Andrew. Where should the boundary be drawn between insight into learners, that obviously helps them, and attempts to forecast their behavior, which is part of all this?
Yeah, that's a great question. We ran into this at Arizona State when we were starting to build out these systems. We fed it with tons of transactional data from Salesforce, and really, as well noted, context is key, and having the human in the loop at the right points was critical for us to make good decisions. So meeting with the counselors and meeting with the learning advisors, understanding like where are the current human boundaries, and then making system decisions around that to build the AI so that it wouldn't overstep what we had gate-kept from individuals. So we really built it that way. And so then we were able to really have walled gardens around certain segments and protected characteristics. But context is really key because, agentic applications with the reasoning don't do well with enormous amounts of tokens. You really need to be very specific. So I think the more specific and tailored you can make the agent, especially with learning, the better. And so it's only going to forecast certain things. It's only going to personalize and predict certain things. It's not going to have run of the mill across all of your applications and all of your learner outcomes.
Okay. I'm going to go to Paul on that. Paul, any?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I always find it fascinating that often it's not the answer, it's the question. So what I mean by that is it is remarkable how many people think, I believe, or appear to act, I shouldn't say I know what they think, but appear to act like the AI has an answer. Well, often it has an answer that is obviously wrong, or forget the hallucinations, just absolutely incorrect. And all you need to do, and all people need to learn to do, would be to see it simply say, really. And I use this example multiple times because I was so fascinated by it. I was driving across the country, passing windmills, and I saw a windmill, and I just thought, what's the return on investment on a windmill? And it did its long analysis, and it said 3.7%. And all I did, I was driving, I said, really? And said, oh, sorry. And redid the calculation and doubled the percentage. So I think one of the challenges of AI is to try to find ways of intercept the agent to engage. I think that was what was just being said, is how to intercept the agent to bring the people into the loop. And the people in this case, I mean, by people, I mean literally the person asking the question or the learner. And that can also obviously involve mentors and instructors, teachers, and all the other people surrounding in the ecosystem. But I think it's fascinating that often people don't realize that it is not providing an answer. And I find the biggest challenge of engaging in some of the platforms we're involved with is really encouraging people to ask the questions. If that encouraging is the right word, compelling, engaging them, making them part of the solution as opposed to, hey, the solution just dropped out of the sky. No, you're part of the solution. And it is challenging, especially, so we deal with a lot of instructors as well, and getting that person engaged means getting them to ask questions themselves, like to probe the system. And that I think is something that's vital to all platform builders and makers of systems.
Absolutely. Well, that's really profound, that we want to nudge people in the right direction and help them go on the path of learning that is most suitable to them and other entities.
And probe the system, push the system.
Yeah.
What did you mean? How could you think that? Why is that the answer? And my simplistic example was funny to me when I was driving, because I couldn't believe it. Immediately made a different assumption. And I said, well, I'm in Montana. Oh, sorry. It did the analysis all over again. So it depends on the questions you ask, right?
And it's a real skill to bring that into your learning system, that part of it.
Exactly.
Sorry, I wanted to kind of jump in here for a second. I really love this example, Paul, that you're saying, in something that I'm seeing kind of in practice, right, in enterprises where we're now building all of these AI agents, and there's a chat interface. There is one kind of the way how you build these systems, kind of the developers the expectation is that we're testing against these types of questions, which are very specific questions, but people are not actually asking those types of questions, right? But I think this is an opportunity to say, look, you have an input which a user provides, which is most probably going to be very ambiguous, because they think they know what they want, but they don't know what they want in reality. But sometimes they're even kind of not feel comfortable saying that they don't know what they want. But then you have a process where you want to take that somewhat ambiguous question and turn it into an unambiguous question. And that is a learning process for both ways. So it is a learning process for the AI builders to say, okay, this is what people are asking and this is what they really mean. But also when the users are going in through that, they're actually realizing, oh, it said it didn't mean this thing. I didn't know about that. It was different ways of seeing that there's these different contexts. And I learned that stuff later on. So going back to my, what is a customer? Ask a question about a customer. If the system AI actually has all that context and says, oh, wait, do you know that we have 3 definitions of a customer here? There's a marketing version, a sales version, a product version. On the view's like, oh, I didn't know that. I learned that now. And then they make, oh, so at the end, what you really meant is that you care about the marketing version of a customer that does this and this. So you turn this ambiguous question into an unambiguous. And in that process, there is so much learning. And by the way, there's a human in the loop right there, right? So yeah, that's what I meant. That's what I meant. So at the end, you're keeping track of all that audibility, that governance. So if there is some notion of accountability, you're like, wait, it wasn't just that the AI gave you this answer, is what that you, the user, also said yes, and you asked for more information and more context until you said, that's exactly what I meant. And I think
You're telling, yes, you're telling them why you're taking them on that path.
exactly.
So clearly helping people learn is more than just responding to their questions.
Yeah, I think it matters a lot if we kind of ask them or we kind of provide them clues as to what could be the next question that they can ask. And if they know, for example, at one particular step, for example, in your particular scenario, right? You have like 3 different marketing and technical, and one more maybe sales or something. And in those cases, you know that at this particular, when people ask this question, then there are 3 possibilities over here. Then if you can, and you always know that there is always a dip in engagement because people are confused as to what exactly this is. Then you realize that, oh, the dip is always, or at this particular question, X% of people always see a dip in engagement because they are so confused. And at that time, we provide, hey, look, I mean, now these are the 3 questions that you can ask maybe. And now we are asking them, we are prompting them to prompt you, I mean, the AI. And I think that's a way far better way of learning rather than, dumbly listening to or seeing what the AI is providing you, right?
Well, it's so powerful to be able to have that perspective on many learners that you bring to each individual learner, and you take them on a measurable path, which leads me to my next question. Andrew, how can insight be used to empower learners? I'm sorry, let me go on to this one. How can analytics, since I was just talking about numbers, uncover hidden learning potential without reducing people to data points?
That's always a challenge when we're dealing with numbers is, as Paul noted earlier, seeing the macro, and we are just thinking of data points, but then getting to know people, then we're going down to the micro. I think focusing on individual outcomes is incredibly helpful as we go through the analytics and understanding whatever the outcome is, number of engaged learners based on whatever statistics, number of degrees, number of certifications, but then further understanding, like, as a result of that outcome, how does that impact someone's life? And that also helps shape the metrics underneath those top line macro metrics, because one of the worst things we can do is get a vanity metric that doesn't actually mean anything, right? Like maybe it is certificates or whatever that are issued to people. But if we don't understand the downstream impact of actually issuing those certificates and have some real use cases and stories behind that, it may not actually be what we should be measuring and optimizing for. So I think taking the time to do some user research and really trying to understand our outcomes beyond the analytics is incredibly helpful.
Well, the companies that have adopted these types of programs, they get more engagement in their learning, and they get more outcomes from the learning of the people in the organization. Vin, I definitely want to bring you in on this one. Anything about analytics?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think to Andrew's point, I think we need to be careful about the metrics that we're measuring. We have to go beyond the vanity of the metrics itself and go actually what it's doing for the learners. Also another point is who is seeing these insights, right? So we could have the learners see only a part of the insights. So is the algorithm fine-tuned towards the system or the learners, right? So there are those ethical boundaries there as well. But I think also something to keep in mind is as we build these systems, we all kind of know this inherently, but we're so used to software, the deterministic nature of software, that you definitely get the answer predictably every time. But AI is so probabilistic, right? So you don't get the same answer every time. So keeping that in mind will help with. So you're kind of abstracting. Analytics is abstracted with an AI instead of software now. So it's not consistently accurate all the time. So it needs people who are running these systems, AI systems, need to keep that in mind as they think about how to fine tune or take decisions on these learners, right?
Yeah, sometimes just having these human in the loop at that particular point is very important. It's like you are reduced from 1,000 possibilities using AI to maybe 5 possibilities, but the AI will always be confused with those 5 possibilities. And having a human decide, okay, maybe the number 2 is the best possibility, right? I think that helps a lot.
So that's part of transparency, isn't it? You're transparently sharing with them how you're taking them down the education path there. Is that important? And Paul, how do we balance transparency with privacy when every click that they make is actually educational?
Yeah. Well, look, we all are data points, but as they say in various, it's like he who controls the data, controls its interpretation. He who controls the data, he also controls its use, which is obviously your ethical issues on steroids. And obviously, we found social media. There are people with their thumbs on the way in which the data is used to influence people. So hopefully, and I shouldn't say hopefully just in wishful thinking, but hopefully in proactive behavior and governance, and I think some of the things that were talked about earlier, is that you really force an organization or the user of the data to find its best outcome in the interest of the people, as opposed to compelling people into one single, I don't know what the right word is, the one single pathway. So I think that bottom line, we all are data points. That's a fact. How people use that data point to help us learn is another important fact. And obviously, when you're dealing with an enterprise, there's a lot of control the enterprise has. When you're dealing with a platform, there's a lot of, influence they have as to what you see. So these tools are not, we all know that these tools are not just mystically, floating around in the ether. They're being managed by people. And how we create guidelines and rules. In the United States, I've moved to Europe recently where I believe there's more rules, although I haven't learned them all. But there are rules in which data can and should be used to a positive personal outcome, as opposed to whether it's politics, whether it's forcing someone down a path in their own education. I think it's complicated. Look, it's very complicated. The whole thing is complicated. But for the most part, I think that we have to realize we all are data points. Obviously, that can be influenced and manipulated, and we have to be, as builders of systems, mindful of that, and transparent, as you just mentioned, is vital. It's absolutely essential.
So what I want to add to this, and I want to connect it back to what Andrew said, key word was impact. So we're giving people to go possibilities to learn things, but they need to be able to go apply that learning to have an outcome. But like, what is that impact? What is that action they're going to take? Like, I've seen this time and time again when people are going to do, we're going to set up a data literacy program. People need to go learn about how to go use data, all that stuff. And they basically go through a bunch of theory. And then at the end, they're like, I don't have the tools. I don't have access to the tools. I don't have the particular project involved. Like, what is the thing I'm going to go apply this for right now? And then I wasn't able to apply the impact for that. And I think this is not just for kind of this learning conversation. This happens a lot in data analytics in general, that we bring all these data points and then we create these great dashboards and like, oh, this is what's happening. This is what's going down. So what? What am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to take an action that's going to make an impact, that's going to change something, that is going to improve and so forth? I think that we need to have that full feedback loop, because I think if it just ends up like, oh, we're just collecting data points and creating dashboards and figuring out insights, it's like insights is really not the end here. We got to take those insights and drive action to that and make an impact. That's that feedback we have to go do. And that's from a technology perspective, but also from a personal perspective, to really understand what people are, what does success look like? So what's in it for me?
Well, making an impact is ultimately one of those goals that they may not state, but it is a goal that they have. They want to make an impact on the organization. So we need to take that into account as we direct their education. I definitely wanted to get Andrew in on this one about transparency. You've worked with universities most recently and so on, and I think that that's becoming a big issue there. So how do you see it?
Is that core tension between innovation and protection that, as Juan noted, we've had forever. As long as we've been dealing with data, we've been trying to balance innovation and protection. And the AI industry is shaping up to look a lot, in my opinion, like the insurance industry, where it's regulated at the state level, except in Europe for Paul. They've got the EU AI Act. But you have to focus on, is the outcome, is the student, is the learner the product, or are we driving positive outcomes for that learner? And are they aware of the data that we're collecting and using for them? And are we using it on their behalf, or are we using it for us? And if we're just using it to train, could we do that in a different way? Could we generate synthetic data, for instance, to do all of our pre-training or fine-tuning on the back end? So it's really trying to come at it with an ethical perspective rather than just by the letter of the law. And I think if we can do that, and if we can explain to the users with a straight face and without shame how we using their data, then we'll be on the right track.
Okay. So be very transparent about it all. And we've been bringing up outcomes repeatedly here, that we want those outcomes in the enterprise. So let me go to Vin and ask, how can insight be used to empower learners rather than just manipulate outcomes?
I think this kind of goes back into the transparency question as well, but also how do we make sure that the learners or students have can make impact? I think are we transparent? Do the learners or the students see what the system sees? Are they able to challenge? If they feel that, hey, they don't see, they don't agree with the scores, or they thought that their test went a little better than what the system decided. Okay, are they able to challenge? And who decides what gets measured, right? So, because I think one is, yes, we have to, like Juan said, we have to focus on the success metrics. What does success look like? But also, the educational platform itself, by design, has a lot of impact on what happens to, especially in the K through 12 and the younger student population. It has a lot of impact on how they perceive themselves, or what path they take in the future. So transparency and impact are tied in my mind, and it's on us who are building these systems to be really careful about how we think about it.
So we really want to make the learner a part of the whole process. And I think in a lot of ways, we're just trying to expand their options as they go forward. So they're a part of this, but can we give some guidance around how to draw that line, and when to outthink the learner versus when to go with the metrics that are going in a certain direction? And Juan, I think you might have some insight on that.
So I want to share my insight again from an internal enterprise perspective. And I think about it like, because you have learners, you have employees that need to go learn things to do their job, right? To be effective and to be happy at their job. You can think about it from like a bottoms up approach and a top down. So bottoms up, like there is all these things within a business that we need to go to understand how it works. But at the top level, there are kind of the focus, kind of very strategic objectives that organization is trying to achieve. And if we go fully bottom up, we can be very kind of boiling the ocean approach. And I think what we really want to be able to get to is like, we understand what are our outcomes, is like we align those outcomes to the objectives of our organization at this moment. And then we can figure out where are the gaps of the people that we have today, such that we can they can learn around what needs to be done so we can achieve those outcomes. So it's a double win-win, right? So the company wins, but the company wins because the employees are actually learning about how to be more effective at their job to do the things that can connect us to the objectives. So I think at the end of the day, this applies kind of, it's a bottoms up and top down approach hybrid, which again, if I zoom out and just look at the data analytics kind of world in general, you can start building a bunch of just dashboards and KPIs about things that we're trying to go do. But like, so what? Which are the most important ones that we're trying to the ultimate objectives of our organization, which is driving the value. So those are the two things that to bring in. So it's a combination, bottoms up, top down.
Can I just interject on what Juan's saying with the violent agreement, that one of the challenges organizations have is aligning people to their objectives, right? Whether it's a person of 10-person company in a small boat or a 10,000-person company or larger. And I think a lot of these issues come around not just purely to the learning side, but to an organizational security and privacy side. To what extent does an organization's data get shared even in a private cloud or in a private model or a RAD or some sort of inference model? So that if I'm working for a big bank or a tech company or a healthcare company, I want to know what their objectives are, and they want to be able to share their strategy documents, their processes, their, product roadmaps. They want to share things in ways that can be shared in a model or in a model or in a RAG or in some sort of data set that channels my learning down the path, sort of as Juan was referring to, that channel me to understand what the customers are. Because if I'm learning inside of a university, which is more broad-based, versus I'm working in a factory doing something very specific, then the learning is different, right? And the goals of the learning are different. So it really depends. Obviously, we're talking about multiple age groups here, but it will absolutely depend on the objective of the, let's call it the learning environment. And I don't mean learning environment theoretically. I mean the learning platform that you're on, whether it's inside of a big company or a university or, a public system that's really more generic. So I think, we are craftsmen of tools, right? We are craftsmen of tools, and the tools we build will be implemented with the audience that we implement them, right? So, if we implement a power saw with kids, that's dangerous. If we, it's a bad analogy, but you get my point, is that you've got to put the right tool has to be put in the right person's hand. Otherwise, it doesn't fit the purpose at all. So if your organization is quite different than else.
Yeah, I think we cannot bring an enterprise education platform and apply that to a K through 12 system where you have to be more careful about, what does consent mean in a K through 12 school versus a enterprise organization.
And the information they get. Obviously, and I think to Juan's point, maybe I'm misinterpreting, but Juan's talking about also, the organization, for lack of better words, is point and shoot. We want you to learn to do these things because we want you to be effective in your job. Whereas in K through 12 or college, it's more lateral. I want you broader, a broader way of thinking versus a narrow way of thinking. I'm not suggesting the organizations want us to be robots, but they do want us to be effective in our jobs, right? So those tools are different.
Yeah, I think that's very important to even the AI to know that if whatever the candidates have been taught, is it something they are putting into practice? How will you measure? There should be some way, some kind of feedback saying that, okay, these guys were taught maybe, Spanish or, I don't know, in French or whatever, right? These people. And are they actually using it in the right way? Or maybe they come back after 1 year and say, oh, they are at the same level. So I think those kind of things, it's very important for somehow that feedback mechanism to be there so that, you can be measured at least some regular intervals. And then the AI can customize what kind of lessons it's going to provide you and at what points.
I feel like,
Go ahead.
Paul, you just said something really insightful that triggered in the thought that I've been thinking about is kind of going deep with an organization, but also kind of going a little bit broader. And I think I've been having these conversations with several executives like, we have been kind of trained to go do our task and actually go very deep, right? Think about it as software developers. I write code, a bunch of stuff, but now with AI, what's happening is that a lot of our tasks of what we do, right, can be somewhat automated, which doesn't mean that I lack I'm going to lose a job. The opportunity here is to start going a little bit broader too, because actually what happens is that you want to be able to say the work that I do, how can it impact other places? So we think about like the T shape, and I think we're now going to start seeing more. The opportunity here is to go from T to T deep in one level to go T to go level to go broad, and then probably what we call the pie, the pie, and then M's, all these stuff that some people talk about. But I think that is kind of a really interesting the change here that we will start becoming more, let's call it less masters of our current craft and kind of getting mastery in different areas that we didn't have exposed, because we're going to be able to get exposed to learn things and then actually figure out how to go connect that other area that I was kind of not directly related to, but I realized that part is actually needed for my work to be successful, because my output was an input for somebody else's. And I'm like, oh, wait, now I can start doing less of my work here because the AI is automated and I can help others. This is where it gets me super excited.
Well, Juan, you also touch on that this notion. Andrew's leaving us. You started to touch on this notion that not only are we getting smarter as humans because of this type of learning, but AI is getting smarter at the same time. And then we have tasks, we have outcomes within enterprises that we have to achieve. And we have both of these tremendous tools to do it. And how do we find the right balance in there for doing that, if that makes sense? Ben, you want to try on that?
Sorry. The question was balancing between
applying human expertise and AI as it's getting better and better for the tasks of the enterprise.
Yeah, I think we like Juan said, right? So we've had these engineers who are deeply technical and very deep in one specific subject. I think that's going to be important, but also less so for the coming breed of engineers, because they want to be able to be more malleable in picking up different skills, soft skills and communication skills on, communicating your ideas will become more important with the AI, but also with other humans will become more important than me sitting on my laptop and coding every single day.
100%. I think that's the switch, and I think people are starting to get it. The leaders, the forward thinking about this, they're realizing, wait, all this annoying, boring work that I actually don't want to go do, but it needs to get done. Like, oh, that stuff can get automated, and then I can now use my time to actually upskill myself, to go learn different parts of the organization. And also, what you just said, Vin, was about the social aspect. It's the communicating. I think that's what's going to get people much more visibility within our organization. And that's why I'm super excited. Like, when people, like, all these tasks that are being automated, fantastic. Automate the stuff I don't want to go do. That's boring, but still needs to get done anyways for the company to work.
Yeah, this again dovetails into the, again, every AI conversation, right, about jobs going away, all that. But I think all of our jobs are going to evolve. I think that's the main takeaway from the conversations and the thoughts I've had over the last couple of years.
For sure. And I even wonder if some of those soft skills can't be learned in the same way as we're talking about these other skills. But anyway, we've come to the point where we give our final insights into the topic that might be different from any of the questions that was asked. But anything you want to add to the topic? I'll start with you, Samir. Anything to add?
So I think I would always think that AI can help us. While people are using it only for the sake of asking questions on areas that they don't know. But I think it would be AI is always going to help us learn if we keep it as a constant companion. It's going to help us learn topics that we don't understand, and also help us come up and learn, basically learn better. And I think that's what it's eventually going to do. That's what I think.
Okay. All right. Thanks. Then let's go to you.
This is my kind of plea to the builders, all of us, and all the builders out there, right? So we kind of have a Jurassic Park problem here when it comes to applying AI in learning. We're building things because we can, but we need to stop and ask ourselves, should we, right? So I think we just have to be more deliberate and intentful about building AI systems in learning, especially for K through 12 and colleges.
Absolutely. Great. Okay. Paul, any last comments?
I've been at this a little bit longer, just in terms of age, than some of you on this meeting. But one of the things fascinating is I've seen role navigation as being rapid and more intense and more challenging than ever before. Years ago, some big banks asked us to help them map out how do I get from one job to another, or what are the skills within one job or another. And that was a manual process. Today, it's happening in real time, and systems, obviously, like many of us are building, are helping that, what I'll call hyper-personalization of the experience. And I think that what is exciting and scary is that, people today who are coming into their careers are finding that they will have not 1 or 3 or 5 potential careers in their future, but many more. And they're all learning more how to solve problems. And the question is, can we put AI tools in their hands that help them remove the drudgery, I think the repetitive stuff that Juan was talking about, and the things that are not necessary, and allow them to experience and expand on their creativity, to use tools to empower them to be creative, not to become, the robots, kind of the Apple commercial from way back when. How do we use content? How do we use tools to empower people to be more creative? And I think that is clearly within our hands. No different than the typewriter was replaced by the computer, etc. Technology evolves, and can we ensure that people are the powerful users of the technology for their own benefit and creativity?
Yes, this has so much potential to help people and improve lives if we guide it in the right direction. Juan, any last comments?
So yeah, I want to touch on a couple of things that you guys said, and I'll share my things. So one, Vin, I love what you said. That the can and should we, like, it's a spot on thing. And by the way, we always talk about soft skills because you have hard skills. I'll be honest, I have a little pet peeve. I don't think we should call it soft skills. These are strong skills, because that's what really is going to differentiate it. So my call to people is, let's stop call it soft skills, call it strong skills. But the takeaway I want the audience to have is, and again, within your enterprise, we're building all these AI systems, all this stuff. Look, we have the opportunity to kind of kill two birds at the same stones, right? Get the job done, but at the same time, help the employee, help the user learn through that process. And to be able to go do this, I think the input to all of these AI systems that are being built is really understand that knowledge, that context within an organization. Because that's the knowledge that you need to be able to teach the people, understand how the business works. Again, my example is like, how many different definitions of customers do we have, and so forth. And we will have the opportunity to scale that out, and we will need to be able to have governance around that stuff to make sure have the right context. So that's going to be the inputs to that. But then we also need to be able to, so what? What's in it for me? How am I applying this? Don't just tell me the answer to it. I want to be able to take an action with that and help me kind of automate more of that work and that action. And then during the whole process, you have those humans in the loop. And then that's how we're learning, and at the same time, accomplishing our task. And I think that's a win-win for organizations. That's what I'm really excited about.
Yeah, this all could be a huge win for people and for organizations that adopt it appropriately. And I think I've learned here today, and maybe we all have, that this is highly nuanced. This is not just straightforward, okay, just learn these things and you've learned a skill. It's kind of a partnership with the human individual in terms of what do they need to learn? What do they like to learn? How do we nudge them? Give them some predictive nudges in the right direction, sort of like personal coaching in a way, but highly expert personal coaching. And clearly, education has gone from guessing what works to a very measurable roadmap towards some measurable ends that make impact on the organization. And this is democratizing expertise across the organization. With that, I'm going to turn it back to Jonathan for his closing remarks.
Excellent. Thank you, William. Appreciate it. And appreciate all of you for this great discussion over the last 50 minutes or so. Before we close things out, I'd like to invite each of you an opportunity to promote your book, podcast, LinkedIn profile, company solution, or anything else you'd like to send the audience to today. Floor is yours, and we'll start in counterclockwise with Vin.
Hey, so as we know, leaders, all of us are under pressure to do something with AI across enterprises, across companies. But as research suggests, 95% of them are failing. So I have an upcoming book, the AI Decision Map, where I share framework for leaders to cut through the hype, ask better questions, and deliver actual value with AI.
Awesome. Well said. Samir, what would you like to promote?
Yes. our product, What Now, from Augment.me, it measures entire classrooms or individuals' engagement using just a simple camera. And we actually launched this product for the classroom at NeuroX on Saturday. And so this product can help teachers or speakers to understand what is the overall engagement, and it can help you tune your whatever you are, for example, teaching. It can help you tune that to specific engagement at that point. Yeah, go check it out.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Paul, what about you?
StarWeaver just released JourneyBuilder.ai, which is a hyper-personalization engine for individuals, but also enterprises and publishers, to allow the organization to create hyper-personalized journeys of people through any specific role that they have, down to a modular level from content that's been ingested from other platforms, as well as built on the fly, including podcasts. So it's about helping people become more knowledgeable, skillful, what they need to do now, at this exact moment, and along their career path.
Thank you, Paul. Appreciate you being here. Juan, over to you.
Right. Well, I work for ServiceNow. I think most people know ServiceNow. 85% of the Fortune 500 trust ServiceNow. We put AI to work for people. So a lot of the stuff that we're talking about, like I live this every day internally. So that's great. If you're interested in learning more about what I was talking about, how to manage your content and stuff, a lot of that is these technologies called knowledge graphs, which I've been working on for a long time. I have a book called Designing and Building Enterprise Knowledge Graphs. And I also host a podcast called Cataloging Cocktails, the honest, no BS data podcast, which we've been doing it for 5+ years. So if you're interested in learning more about things that happen in the data and AI space, you got 5+ years of podcast episodes to catch up on.
Right on. And our moderator, William McKnight.
Well, for me, I'm always publishing. So track me on LinkedIn. That's a good place to track what we publish and what we do. I have a 7-year running monthly webinar series that is called Analytics Architecture, where I help you design your architecture and implement an architecture that's multifaceted and with all the things necessary really to support a modern enterprise workload and get you ready for AI, which is a big part of the services that we provide to the enterprise. So if you're thinking about getting into AI, or more likely you're already trying to, but maybe you're learning that the data's not quite ready for AI, that's where we can help. We are a vendor neutral consultancy that brings a vast amount of enterprise data experience and expertise to the table. And if you're a vendor out there in this space and want to see how maybe your product stacks up against other vendors, we've done an industry leading number of benchmarks in the space, and we do all sorts of other engineering related industry analyst products for those leading and emerging vendors in the space of enterprise data.
Excellent. Thank you, William. And thank you to all of our experts, including Andrew, who unfortunately had to board a flight to Paris and leave halfway through the show. But we understand. I appreciate that he was able to come just for the middle 40 minutes or so of this event. Thank you for your attention as well, all of us watching at home. If you'd like to dive deeper into enterprise technology, we encourage you to join the conversation over at insightjam.com. Or you can subscribe right here to our YouTube channel for weekly podcasts, panel highlights, expert advice, live programming like this right here, and a whole lot more. And stay tuned, because in just a few short minutes, our last expert keynote of day 1 of Insight Jam Live. Clyde Seepersat is going to be discussing breadth, brains, and belonging, the real foundations of AI-ready teams. Sounds like a great conversation, a great keynote. You don't want to miss it. But until then, thank you for watching and listening. My name is John, and we hope to see you next time.
For video highlights, replays, and more, visit insightjam.com.